I'd like to thank you for the opportunity, and I actually came here with a different question, but I wanted to comment on this sort of face-off.
It's animated, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the first one I come to, so.
This is a model of Washington, D.C.
Well, that was going to be my point, because, you know, you really both have a point, and you're both right, and you have legitimate points, and you can disagree with me later if I'm wrong, but, you know, I agree with your point. As a healthy person, you know, I exercise, I like to think that I can stay healthier, and I do resent if somebody's drinking a lot of sodas and they get diabetes, that I have to support that cost. And that's, I think, a legitimate point. And I think that's probably...
Don't pick on my soda drinking now.
Okay. Something else.
I was thinking partial stuff, like narcotics.
Whatever. We can pick a different vice. But, you know, and you did come in confrontationally, but, you know, I think you had a legitimate point, a concern. And it was really sort of a humanitarian concern, and everybody sort of ganged up on you here. And the way I see your concern is that if you make the point about diabetes, and there's somebody though that has gotten diabetes not through their own fault, that the danger is, and your concern is, they will be lumped and have to pay extra for something that wasn't their fault. And she knows perfectly well that prostate cancer was not your fault. The point she's trying to make is that you've got to be careful, it's difficult. So the response, I think, is to address the concern rather than, and we do both, everybody tends to face off, and you come in and you pick a team before you start your discussion, and that's what the problem is. As you said, it's like Washington. You know, you listen, get beyond the face off, listen to the real concern, which I think again is legitimate on both sides, and maybe you come up with some proposal for a tax on sugar, that, or, you know, a vice tax that helps pay for healthcare or something. Look for solutions instead of this, everybody, you know, applauding the fact that, you know, that you were picking a team, basically. You were picking teams, and one team's rooting for you and the other's for her.
Well, I prefer, although there are teams, I prefer to think of it as different public policy positions.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what her end game,
No, to me, that's legitimate. Different positions.
Because you went on national television and
Yeah.
basically put down people that have no, that have cancer without choosing to have.
I never said
I
that.
think, can I slip another question?
Yeah.
Might be you know, I am interested in solutions. I'm an engineer, as probably many are here. With the recent shootings and everything, how, you know, what do you recommend? I mean, the discussion, people are frustrated because we have the discussion over and over again. And they tend to be in general terms, like, oh, everything's on the table, or we're going to, you know, work across the aisle. But, you know, a specific, what your recommendation would be, you know, what, if, when you go back to DC, what, if you were czar or whatever, you know, you could say, I think this is the first step that we ought to do to address this problem. Something very specific as you can get. I know it's complicated.
Again, I believe in states' rights. I would defer it to cities, counties, and states to do the best they can with the resources they have to protect their students and their schools, but that they should be able to run without federal government interference.
I agree with that, but let's say you're back in the state. What specifically would you recommend? Did you have anything that, you know, that, because you all have heard all these different arguments.
Probably the mental health aspect that this gentleman brought up. It seems to be that most of these assassins have mental health issues. There are also a lot of other societal issues that seem to be encouraging this kind of conduct. I'm not sure I want to get into the details, but all of y'all can use your imaginations about a deterioration of our society in determining what's right and what's wrong and adhering to the right. Yeah. And it's come from a myriad of different factors, not just one.
But again, that's
probably
general.
Dozens.
A specific thing that you would do to change that is what I think, maybe not you specifically, but
if I was on a school board, I would try to have more armed personnel in the school so that you can fire back. When I was on the baseball field and there was a guy with a similar weapon who was blasting away, shot over 100 bullets over about a 7 or 8 period of time, we had 5 of our side hit. But none of us died. And the reason was we had some people shooting back. And eventually he was killed. And as long as you make certain areas of your community kill zones where no one's in a position where they can fight back, then that's going to tend to be where these kinds of unstable, mentally imbalanced people go to do the things they do. But having said all that, do you know what weapon was used in the largest school killing in the history of the United States? Does anyone know what weapon was used? over 40 people were killed, students over 30, and including
M1.
the teachers and staff, over 40 were killed. Does anyone know what the weapon was?
M1.
No.
Was it Texas?
What did you say? No shotgun? Pardon? No, it was Bath, Michigan,
What year was it?
1927.
NRA.
This is not a new
permission with that
thing, is it?
device.
It's not a new thing.
No. It's the kind of thing that people can do if they want to take out a lot of people, okay? And in this instance, a man first killed his wife, then he firebombed his house at his farm, then he went to a school, and with a makeshift bomb, he blew up the school, and then his last act was to detonate the bomb that he tied around his neck.
So, but
Over
yeah,
40 people were killed.
That's what
But that's a general
$5,000
discussion.
from
You know
the
what goes on in
NRA will
Europe
buy you.
with the mass killings in Europe?
But
Sometimes they use weapons, but as
What-
often as not, they use vehicles.
what is the specific conclusion? And again, I don't necessarily agree with your last conclusion, but what I like is
No,
specific.
I'm just saying there are a lot, if someone wants to kill a bunch of
Yeah,
people.
and everybody would agree to
they're-
that, but that's not a solution. That's talking about the problem. And I've heard a lot about the problem.
Well, I gave you a
Frustrated.
specific solution.
Well,
That was
I-
that we
yes.
better protect our students
Yes.
at the schools as necessary in the communities in which we live. But that is a balancing act that your city, county, and state officials have to take into account. And the balancing act is money that we put into security is money that is not going into teaching. And that's the balancing act they have to do.
I'm going to confront, I appreciate it, and that's exactly, even though I don't necessarily agree with that, I was a teacher in public school for a year. So I don't know if I'd want to have a weapon or not. But the fact that you made a specific proposal, I applaud, and that's what we should be doing, instead of talking about, oh, you know, problems, and you can kill somebody with a knife, and yes, we all know that, but the frustration among the people, I think, is that let's solve the problem. You know, if Von Braun had discussions, we never would have gotten.
What is your suggestion for the solution?
What?
What is your suggestion?
To which, to,
To the challenge you gave me, I'm
okay,
back to I'm all ears.
yeah, I mean, I think one, I probably can't give you new ideas because of the, but my brother, for example, suggested that you would limit ammunition, because ammunition eventually will go bad. You can't get all the guns off the street because there are too many. I'm not saying, I still think you should, I mean, I personally think you should limit automatic weapons, but that's just one possibility. I don't know if it's practical or not.
Automatic weapons are limited. Now, how many people here want to get rid of bump stocks? Raise your hand. Okay? Here's the problem with getting rid of bump stocks. Bump stocks are what you put on a gun to change it from a semi-automatic, pull trigger, boom, pull trigger, boom, pull trigger, boom, to an automatic, like a machine gun, pull trigger, okay? Here's the problem with it. It's symbolic, and it's not substantive. There's a congressman, I'm not going to mention his name, and he's a pretty bright individual. You'd like him, he's an engineering type, okay, has a lot of patents. And he videoed himself. He went to a local hardware store, Lowe's, Home Depot, spent a few dollars, came back home, and with the parts that he bought, in less than 120 seconds, he converted those parts into a bump stock on his semi-automatic weapon so that it became a machine gun. Okay? And he showed himself doing all these things, and then pulled the trigger one time, and it was just a stream of bullets going out. So if it's that easy to create what is called a bump stock, and someone wants to go out like this, you can't stop them.
It's well taken, so that's not a solution, so you have to look.
But
at
that's
the
what Washington is talking about. Oh, we're going to
Well,
ban
they
bump
should,
stocks.
I mean-
It's symbolic.
Right.
But it may
But
stop
to
the
a
mentally
dedicated
ill guy
killer-
from getting a bump stock.
Pardon?
It may stop the mentally ill guy from getting a bump stock.
Well, everybody's an engineer, so
I don't know what.
Or a 17-year-old from shooting.
I don't know what the
Well,
solution
he
is.
might show up with a handgun.
I gotta get rid of it.
He's not old enough to buy one.
This gentleman in the
But
door.
I
Appreciate you.
I appreciate your
Sorry, we're
remarks.
getting this down to the nitty, not nitty gritty, we're getting in the nitty gritty.
I have,
Yes, sir.
I have two questions. For one, my name is Robert Lewis. I'm ex-Air Force reservist at Maxwell.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. I am a millennial. Looks like I'm one of the very few in the room right now. And
You're a millennial having done all that already?
but one of the few things that I wanted to at least bring up to part is this division that we have between Republicans and Democrats. I always see this us versus them mentality. When I go online, when I talk to people, it's always liberal or conservative. And as a country, everyone always says the same thing. It's like we want to all come together. We all want the same thing. We all want less violence. We all want better education. But because you're liberal, you're one of them. Or because you're conservative, you're one of them, and I can't deal with you. And that's sort of been that mentality in Washington that I've seen grow and grow and just create more and more division amongst us over the years. My question to you would be, what would you say is a way that we can stop with the division and stop teaming up with Republicans and start teaming up with Alabama citizens?
Well, I wish the Republicans would stick together and the Democrats would stick together like you've described, but it's quite clear that a lot of our Republicans are pretty liberal, to use your word, and there are some Democrats that are pretty conservative. Well, I'll mention his name, but he's up in Chicago. The Democrats right now are trying to take him out because he's conservative. The labels Republican, Democrat, conservative, and liberal are labels that help people in a general way understand what a person's philosophy of government is generally, but you really need to get to the specifics with an individual in order to be right. And I would submit that the battle is not so much Republican versus Democrat or liberal versus conservative. It is pro-life or pro-choice. It is socialism or free enterprise. It is strong national defense or weaker national defense. It is more entitlement programs or fewer entitlement programs. It is open borders or a secure border. And collectively, what often happens is people who have a general philosophy of government get together. You know, birds of a feather flock together kind of thing. And so that is what is causing the rather simplistic labeling of us as liberal or conservative or Republican or Democrat, okay? But if you get to the public policy issues, that's what the debate really comes down to. I don't know of very many people in Washington that say, gosh, I'm a Republican, so I'm voting this way. Or I'm a Democrat, I'm voting this way, okay?
There are a lot of people in Alabama that do.
Well,
And I guess my thing would be is, why can't someone be both? Why can't I be pro-life and women's rights? Why can't I?
Well, what are you for on abortion? Are you for it being legal or not?
I am pro-life to a degree. I do value life. I do want every child to have a chance to take a breath on this earth and to do something. Because of my experience with people coming from Butler High School in Huntsville, Alabama, class of 2008, the people that have struggled the most are the ones that typically, that I see my friends, they end up doing the most. I have a friend, I remember when he graduated college, he graduated summa cum laude, he was the president of his fraternity, highest GPA in the whole state for everybody in his fraternity. I spoke to his mother, he said this guy could have been a drug dealer, and she wouldn't have did anything about it. But what he did was, he went out there, he went to school, got his 4-point+ GPA, he went to DC, as a matter of fact, for a couple of years. That's when he decided he wanted to pursue law. And right now he's a supervisor in Detroit for Chrysler while he's paying for his own law degree. And he can't even come home because he's more worried about, you know, taking care of being, I guess, held back, trying to take care of everything at home rather than moving forward and getting to where he needs to be. So, like I said,
With that
it really all depends on.
With that kind of success, I could tell him he needs to come back to Tennessee Valley.
I would love for him to come back because he could help us out a lot. But I mean, that's the point. For me, I am pro-life for reasons specifically like that.
Are you for legalized abortion or not?
I believe that there are circumstances that cause for that to be considered. For instances of rape, for instances of health, especially if it's a high.
Risk.
Yes, a high risk. If it's a high risk pregnancy and the mother is already not healthy enough, and the risk of both of them dying is high, I believe that she should be able to have that option.
Okay, that's one of the compromise positions on abortion that most Republicans agree with.
But when you talk to Alabama constituents or Alabama citizens, that's not something that they bend on. And when you talk to when they vote for you all, they're not under that impression.
I think most Republicans and most Alabama citizens right now would be in favor of a ban on abortion with the exception of rape, incest, perhaps deformity of the child, depending on the severity of the deformity. And then when you talk about the health of the mother, there's always the issue of whether you're talking about whether the mother would feel good or if you're talking about a risk of loss of life.
You're a
I'm
man.
not a woman, so I
You're a
can't
man.
tell a woman how to feel. So that's not even something I would
All right,
want
but
to
anyways.
do with another man. But my next part is,
Thank you for your remarks. Do you have another question?
yes, sir. My other part, I'm sorry, I'll be quick. In respects to, I guess, gun control, because I'm not for gun banning. I do believe that, you know, maybe a tax on bullets would be a good thing because maybe if it costs $200 to fill your clip, you would think twice about how you're going to shoot or where you're going to go to shoot it. I believe also that maybe Alabama should look at just more common sense laws. My mother got a permit to shoot a gun or to get a gun. She's never shot one before. When I was in the military, we had very strict rules of engagement, very strict rules on how you handle a weapon. We didn't carry a weapon when we walked all around base. It was the MP's job to handle that. Just like in society, that's what the police are here for. With respect to you all's job and your duty, which I really appreciate you all for that. But also, why not something as simple as just a gun course? Why don't we say, okay, before you're allowed to take the responsibility of having a weapon, you need to go through, like someone mentioned, a mental evaluation, but also I need to know that you know how to properly handle a weapon. I need to know that you know how to properly clear your weapon. Why don't we make laws on how they need to be locked up so that kids can't just, we had a 7th grader today that shot himself in the bathroom. Why don't we just have laws that say, okay, your gun has to be locked up in a certain way. We don't care where in the house, but that way your kid can't come and get it and take it to school and do whatever he will. Of course, we can't stop gun violence. We're never going to be able to stop someone from coming in and wanting to kill people. If people don't want to kill people, they will kill people. But why don't we at least try to do something to reduce that, to make it less risky, to make, you know, me not be so scared if I'm to walk into any kind of building. I guess that's just where, like, is this something that you agree with, disagree with? Where do you see this?
Well, you have touched on a large number of aspects of the Second Amendment. All I can tell you is I stand with the Second Amendment right to bear arms, and here is why. When our founding fathers put that in the United States Constitution, Bill of Rights, keep in mind they've just fought a war against what in effect was a dictatorship, a king. And they were concerned, particularly, well, you have to have equal weaponry. They were concerned that there would be an effort in the United States of America, if the citizenry did not have weapons, to turn America into a kingdom or a dictatorship. And so they wanted to make sure that the citizenry was armed so that if somebody ever dared to try to take over the United States of America and turn it into a kingdom or a dictatorship, the citizenry could fight back and regain the rights that they had fought for and won in the Revolutionary War. And for 200 and something years, that Second Amendment has to some degree deterred people from ever trying to take over our country, our central government, and turning it into a dictatorship or a kingdom or whatever the risk may be. And you can look at other nations in history where individuals did not have the right to bear arms, where in turn the government has become the greatest oppressor of those citizens. And so you can look at that history, and as with anything in the Bill of Rights, there's a pro and there's a con. Okay? There's no provision in the Bill of Rights that I can think of right offhand that does not have a negative side to it. On balance, I think the pro outweighs the con, but I do think we as a society need to do a much better job of catching these kinds of individuals who engage in these wild gun battles, killing a lot of people before they get to that point of doing it. So your point in that regard is well taken. Who is the other gentleman who stood up?
I know it's almost time, and
Lee High School grad, Butler High School grad.
That's right. So you know, let's talk about something positive a minute. There's some great things happening in Jackson County. Google they've moved almost 50 construction trailers on site and it's fixing to crank up. And they're telling us, for Google's the most private company in the they're actually finally starting to tell us some things. And they're saying they're about to get started and they're gonna be here for a long, long time.
Make sure that they be as charitable here as they are elsewhere.
They've already started. They started last year with 2 grant cycles. They're gonna do 2 grant cycles a year in the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Good corporate citizen to have, gold star with Jackson County to get them.
Absolutely. So it's a game changer for us. On a second note, we're on the verge of potential more great news. As you well know, we've been working for Home Bellefonte for a long, long time. It's been bought out. He's got until November to complete the sale. You have stepped up. It's not a question. I want to give you credit where credit's due. We've been working very, very close with Mr. Franklin Haney. We've been working close with Bud Kramer, our former congressman, who is working, kind of navigating everything in Washington for Mr. Haney. And you have stepped up to the plate big time. I want to give you credit. We asked for your help, and you put a full-time staffer on the job helping us, and it's moving forward. He's jumped through hoops, and I never dreamed he would be able to jump through. It's looking very, very positive, so I want to thank you for doing that, because that is a game changer also. Because we're talking about 5,000 to 7,000 construction jobs during construction, 2,000 permanent high-paying jobs if we can make it happen, and I want to thank you for your help. You've been very, very helpful.
Well, that's nice. I didn't pay him to do that, although if my memory serves me correctly, my mom did teach him at Lee High School.
Yes, you did.
Government economics. Well, go ahead.
I'd like to just say one thing. I think we talked about a lot of topics, but one thing we haven't talked about is parenting. And as parents, we control our own guns, we control our home, we control our spiritual life, we control our business life. And if we would take over our homes again, I honestly believe that we would impact the cities, communities, the states, and federal. And we tend to want everybody else to solve their own problems. And I think if we start as parents, we can make a lot more improvements.
That's right.
I'd like to close on this remark. It's very, if we have Tiffany, we've got 2 more. Tiffany, you're the boss.
You have 2 minutes.
Oh, man.
I wanted to ask, you presented us with a problem. That's a huge problem, the deficit and all in debt. First, my question is, who do we owe the most money to as
China.
a nation?
Well, Federal Reserve and then China.
China. China, a socialist country?
They are a communist country. They have, over the last few decades, started shifting away from socialism to some kind of form of socialism and free enterprise. I wouldn't call them 100% socialist, but they're definitely not free enterprise at the current time. And they're cleaning our cloud.
Just, do you have, I didn't hear any, I heard a lot of sadness from you about what's happening, but I didn't hear any kind of solution or any kind of idea of how this could be reined in, taken under control.
Constrained spending. And that's why I voted against the $300 billion increase in spending bill a couple of weeks ago, because it wasn't paid for, it's borrowed. Constrained spending and try to reduce federal government regulation in the private sector that inhibits our economy's ability to grow, and do other types of things that you can do to stimulate economic growth. Basically have faith in free enterprise, not socialism. And the further you get away from socialism, in my judgment, the more powerful our economy is going to be. But for decades now, the federal government has poked its nose into more and more things that are private sector and should be private enterprise. To just give you an idea of the economic cost, there was a study done by the Small Business Administration that said that if you look at all the regulations of the federal government put together, on average, the cost to an employer, on average, nationwide, all jobs, is in excess of $10,000 per employee. That's a pretty big cost that drives up the price of the goods that we manufacture, that gives our international competitors an advantage that in turn enables them to sell their products rather than we sell our products, that results in our having a significant loss of jobs. That's a big one. Another big one is we need to stop coddling illegal aliens and deport them. They cost us a net loss of about $116 billion a year in city, county, state, and federal tax losses net. About $20 billion in revenue generated, $136 billion in services consumed. That would also help with the deficit. So there are some things that can be done, but having said that, I no longer see a will to do the right thing in Congress or the White House to prevent an insolvency and bankruptcy. What I see is a lot of people giving up and focusing on the next election rather than the future of our country. And that is extraordinarily frustrating to see that out of the White House and out of Congress. Not just this White House, but both White Houses since I've been in Washington, D.C. as the United States Congress.
How long do we have, sir? You said we're heading towards insolvency. How long do we have before we become an insolvent government?
We have as much time as it takes for our creditors to decide they do not want to loan us any more money. I don't have the ability to peer into their mindset and know when those creditors are going to say, I'm not going to loan you anymore. Some creditors are friendly, some are American citizens, some are geopolitical foes like China. China, in part, could help trigger an insolvency and bankruptcy by saying they're not going to loan us any more money. When they will do that, I don't know. But there are other nations that, basically it's like this. When you are in debt, you have turned your creditor into your master and you are the creditor's slave. I know that's an exaggeration, it's somewhat biblical in nature, but that's in effect what you're doing is you're giving up your freedom as you become a servant of your creditor, because the creditor now owns part of you and part of your work and part of your money that you earn from that work. And it's a dangerous path that we're taking. And quite frankly, we need to elect a whole bunch of better people. You know, only 2 of our 9 senators and congressmen from the state of Alabama voted against that $300 billion increased debt bill 2 weeks ago. Only 2 out of 9. That's in Alabama. Myself and one other. I won't mention their name because I don't want to. Y'all can look that up as to who the other 7 are.
Do you support Trump's 25-cent per gallon gas tax increase?
We're finished.
She
We've
said
got like
that,
3 more over the, what time is that?
Yeah.
Your boss said we're done.
I know you don't.
Okay, well then I don't have to answer further. Thank you so much for the opportunity, sir. In the discourse you saw between this lady and myself, you see on the House floor on a regular basis, I'm waiting for her to get elected to the Senate or Congress. So wait till I retire. Thank you.
We were interested in finding out where we could look at your blog.
Yeah. Here you go. Right here, arclight.blogspot.com.
Thank you very much. Good to see you.